Good afternoon, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. And I am back with another Are You In? I'm very excited for this one. I've been meaning to do this one for a while, but didn't know when and where to exactly place it with all the other albums that I've been reviewing. And this is an album that I have not heard a lot of people talk about. So I'm happy that I'm going to be sharing this with you, because you all need to know about this one. So, I am reviewing today Dawes' newest album entitled Passwords. Now, if you don't know who Dawes is, they are a folk rock slash indie rock band from Los Angeles, California. Their members include Taylor Goldsmith on guitars and vocals, Griffin Goldsmith on drums, Wiley Gelber on bass, and Lee Pardini on keyboards. Their previous albums include North Hills in 2009, Nothing Is Wrong in 2011, Stories Don't End in 2013, All Your Favorite Bands in 2015, and We're All Gonna Die in 2016. Now, this is a newer band for me. I didn't hear about them until their last album, and I found out about it through the Rolling Stones Top 50 Albums of that year as I was going through it to compare and contrast to my list. Heard this one, really liked it. I loved the vibe of it, this very folky, indie folk band with ties of kind of like the 70s rock and late 60s rock. And I love the vocals by Taylor. It's very buttery and kind of reminds me of Elvis Costello. When I listened to his voice, I could have definitely heard him and this band in that 60s, 70s time with the Michael McDonalds and the Steely Dans and everything like that. I think a lot of their stuff is very laid back and very interesting. A lot of great storytelling like Steely Dan. And it was a fun album to listen to. So when I heard that they were putting out a new album, very surprisingly that they were putting out a new album, I was super excited. I wanted to dive into it and see if this was going to be as good, if not better, than their previous album. And I am here to let you all know. So when you first start this album, you hear Living in the Future. And it's more of a standard rock song, more on that rock side rather than the folk side. It has this really interesting guitar riff that's in 7/8, and it's something that I didn't hear a lot from the previous album. It's more on that side of When My Time Comes rather than stuff on their previous album. And I think it's a really, really good opener. It has these really cool riffs, and what I love about it is Taylor's voice is a little bit more subdued at the beginning and then builds during the chorus. It doesn't do much thematically after that, but I think the riff and the 7/8 idea is a solid way of opening this album. And you would think, hey, maybe this is going to be more of a rock-based album. And there are some of that. On songs like Feed the Fire, which I think is an incredible song. I love all of it. I love the feel of the guitar riff. It reminds me of, again, going back to those 60s and 70s vibes. I could have heard this on a Michael McDonald song. And I love just the feel of that riff. They're playing with this idea of horizontal and vertical movement where you have, this guitar line, but also you have the chords around it being played with this particular line. The drums are great. The bass line is fun. The harmonies are great. I love the melody. And there's even a 9/8 bridge. It builds into this nice solo. And then at the end, after the last chorus, they bring this piano and guitar outro that kind of trades off, which is a lot of fun. It's a beautiful song, and it keeps that rock vibe going. There's also Telescope, which has this more bluesy sound and still uses that rock a little bit. You have this more active drum part, which comparatively to everything else on the album is a very standout piece just with what it does. And I love the change in the bluesy idea in the verses and the pre-chorus to this more subdued chorus part where the instrumentation isn't the forefront. Again, another one of these standout rock ones. Then you get Mistakes We Should Have Made, which has this more 80s influence sound with these electronic drums. To me, it's not one of the more standout songs. It's all right, but it just doesn't really. It's not memorable to me in comparison to everything else. So you got 4 songs from there that have this rock feel, but a majority of this album, I would say, is more subdued and more of this light rock rather than the heavier rock that you heard from before. And that's honestly not a bad thing. What I love about it is a lot of these songs have these beautiful parts that give space to these beautiful storylines. From the get-go, you get Crack the Case, which is talking about trying to have a conversation with someone that you disagree with in order to come to a conclusion that will help everybody else. And again, this is more tying to the political landscape right now, where people are on both sides are trying to have conversations to try to merge this gap so everyone can be better. My Greatest Invention is another one where it's a little bit more subdued, and it's talking about, it's kind of ambiguous on here. It's kind of like with the idea of passwords in general with this album. This album is trying to be more cryptic at times because of the world that we're living in, where everything is so open that music might sometimes be the only bastion of having these ambiguous ideas. So My Greatest Invention is I have 3 different ideas for it. It's either about someone who passed away and everyone keeps asking about them. It's about a significant other that is no longer together and yet they're trying to remember the good times. Or it could even be just a state of mind that someone creates when they're not feeling comfortable and people ask about them rather than the true person, in social events. It's a very subdued arrangement. It's very simplistic, but it gives room for the vocals. I Can't Love, another one of these ones that is a little bit more on the lighter side, but it's one that is fun. It's a lot of fun. It's talking about loving someone and they can't love this person any more than they do at this moment in time. It's a nice little song, and there isn't much in terms of the arrangement, but there was one cool thing that I wanted to pick out, and I'm going to show you guys on the guitar. I'm going to try something a little bit different when I talk about chord progressions. So, the verse itself has this G to F to E minor, D to C. But the second time around, it follows mostly the same pattern. To the D, and then this C sharp over A chord, which gives this a completely different feel at the end of it. I like that it's a kind of a out of nowhere chord in comparison to everything else that was going on. This whole entire thing is using a lot of modal mixing. You're not seeing a lot of keys that would have C, D, E minor, F, and G. You would usually see, in any case, it would usually be a D minor in there if you wanted to put this all in C. And then when you change it to G, F, E minor, D, A, you're not using any particular key that has all those chords. And they even use more of modal mixing in the chorus, where you have I can't love you anymore, D, G, C. Like, you wouldn't have any particular key that would have all 3 of those at once. But it's using this idea of 5 up, where you have D, and that's the 5 of G, which is the 5 of C. So a lot of modal mixing. I think it's a really cool thing in a very simplistic song. Never Gonna Say Goodbye, again, another one of these that is more heartfelt and open, and it's talking about his time with his, at this point, fiance, Mandy Moore. Yes, that Mandy Moore. It is talking about how he was always sure of everything and was still alone. And it wasn't until he was being able to be open and vulnerable that he was able to find someone that could match him in that idea that he doesn't always have to be perfect, that is a give and take, and each can help each other in those moments. I think it's a very beautiful song. I think it's something that we're all looking for in life. Someone that can be there for you, but you can also be there for them. I think that's a very beautiful notion. And then the last song, Time Flies Either Way, is one of the highlights on the album as well. It has some more flowing parts than some of these other slower songs, where you get these flowing piano lines and these flowing saxophone lines, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful notion for a beautiful song. It's talking about the idea as we grow older, we realize that we shouldn't have to take life too seriously because time's going to fly either way. And that is a notion that a lot of people have a hard time dealing with, especially my generation, especially younger people, where we're trying to fight for everything now and make sure that everything's good. And yeah, that's a great notion, but knowing that there's a chance that all this doesn't matter. So we should have fun with the people that we care about and not have to worry about one thing or another, trying to get other people to accept us for who we are. A beautiful ender to a fantastic album. I would say the only one that doesn't do well for me is Stay Down. It's very reminiscent of a Jimmy Buffett or a Beatles song, mostly Oobla Dee Oobla Da, just in terms of the melody. And it's not a bad song, it's just very cheesy in terms of sound at points. I do like the nature of the chorus, where it uses this diminished chord in parts of the chorus, as well as I do like the idea of adding a little bit more time to the end of each verse right before saying Stay Down. I think that's a really cool idea, but it's one of the least standout ones to me. In terms of the album itself, fantastic album. It's a 50-minute album, and you have 10 tracks. So some of these are on the longer side, especially when you're talking about ballads. But I think all of them, for the most part, do well. I think there's enough interest in terms of some piano solos, some guitar solos, some interesting drum work, some interesting arrangements in general that make up for these somewhat simplistic arrangements. I also do love the fact that a lot of these songs do give room for Taylor's vocals and Taylor's storytelling. It's just as good as it was on the previous album. A lot of these have some great storylines. I've already talked about some of them, but Living in the Future is talking about trying to live in the present with dealing with the troubling waters of today. Stay Down is talking about finding peace in isolation and being able to be yourself and being fine with being yourself when you're alone. Feed the Fire is talking about Taylor's look at himself as a musician and as him being himself, and like him wanting to get out there with fame and fortune, yet never feeling great about his own self. And Mistakes We Should Have Made is talking about, it sounds like it's about a one-night stand to forget the structure of life for a minute, where it's this person that he's infatuated with for a minute and doesn't care about every other surrounding, whether he has a wife or someone else. Or it's talking about the love that you had for a friend that you never felt like it could ever work out because you two were close as friends and never could make it work, and just giving into that and giving it a chance. And even Telescopes. Telescopes is one of the more allegorical ones, where it's not talking about anyone in particular, it's talking about just a certain situation. And this one being about a kid whose father left the family to pursue other things and never made it, and the son always wondering why he wasn't there. And because of this, he slowly changes to being this person who doesn't do well either, just like his father. I think a lot of these songs are very interesting and have a lot of depth to them, even when their arrangements are pretty simplistic. So, phenomenal album. I can't recommend it enough. It's up there for my favorite albums of the year. If I was to say anything, is if you don't like the classic rock sound or the lighter rock sound or this more jazz influenced ideas at times, then it's not going to be for you, and I can't really do anything about that. But if you're willing to give it a chance, definitely listen to it all the way through. Listen to it a couple times. It's a phenomenal album with a lot of depth, a lot of interesting songs, and a lot of just like feel-good songs, if you will. Not like feel-good like hits of the summer, but like very chill, feel-good songs, talking about life, talking about everything. And it does it in a very beautiful way. So that is my time. Thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoy this album, give it a like. Comment on what you like about this album, what you hate about this album, albums that I should review in the future, as well as what I can do better for the future of this channel. Subscribe to my channel. Share this with your friends, and just keep on watching my videos. So in the middle, you'll see that little subscribe button. Please give that a click if you haven't already. You can even hit the bell if you want to be notified of when I'm also putting out other videos. I'll also be putting up a link to the album, as well as a link to all my other RU-ins. If you like this, you should check out the rest of them. I'll be back on Friday or Saturday for the next part of the Digging Through Discographies with Hawken, and then on Sunday I'll be back with another interesting album. Won't give it away just yet, but I'm going to be excited to talk about it, maybe for a different reason. But until then, this is The Music Fan, and I am signing out.